Olivia Moore never imagined that a routine engineering project would thrust her into a battle between the known and the unknown, between control and chaos. It was just another day in the lab, until she touched the alien device. What was supposed to be a simple repair soon spiraled into a nightmare, as gravity itself unraveled and reality began to bend. But as she stands on the edge of a choice that could destroy or save everything, Olivia must confront a terrifying truth. This machine, this power, is not just something she can fix. It's something that has chosen her. Will she control it, or will it control her? The clock is ticking, and the future of the world is in her hands. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the card button on the top right corner and hitting the notification bell so you can get amazing daily stories as and when published. Please do comment your views about the story or any topic that you want to get a story on. We will make it happen. Let's dive in the story. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Olivia Moore found herself standing in the middle of her lab, staring at a device that didn't belong in her world. The alien object, unlike anything she had ever seen before, hummed softly in the corner. It wasn't just a machine, it was a mystery. The smooth, metallic surface reflected the harsh, overhead lights as it pulsed with an almost unnatural glow. Olivia's fingers tingled as she approached, her heart beating faster with each step. She was an engineer, brilliant, methodical, and more than capable of fixing just about anything. But this was different. She had spent years working with advanced technology, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The object was silent, but its presence screamed at her to touch it. Her long, dark hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, a few stray strands falling over her eyes. Her sharp, intelligent gaze never left the device as she adjusted the sleek, form-fitting black suit she wore, which hugged her athletic figure. The tight material allowed her full freedom of movement, just in case the situation took a turn. But she hadn't expected it to go this far. "This doesn't feel right," she murmured, running her hand over the cool surface of the device. It was like a faint hum buzzed under her fingertips, and for a moment, Olivia hesitated. Was she doing the right thing? The data had come through. This device was supposed to harness energy to bend gravitational forces. But how could that be possible? "Just do it, Olivia," she whispered to herself, shaking off the doubt. "You're the best at this. You've handled tougher projects." But even as she spoke to herself, she knew this wasn't like anything she had ever faced. This wasn't a malfunctioning engine or a broken circuit. It was something else. The screen on her nearby desk blinked to life. It was Nathan Carter, her colleague. His face appeared on the holographic display, his expression tense, yet hopeful. "Olivia, any progress?" Nathan's voice crackled through the comm system. She sighed, feeling the pressure mounting on her shoulders. She could feel the weight of the project pressing down on her, but there was no turning back now. Not after everything they had invested into it. "I'm starting the diagnostics now," she replied, keeping her voice steady. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're okay to handle this on your own? This isn't exactly the kind of work we should be doing without backup." "I'm fine," Olivia responded quickly, trying to sound confident. But she could feel the unease growing in her chest. "It's just a matter of recalibrating the energy flow. I can fix it." Her fingers moved swiftly over the control panel, tapping in the commands she had memorized. But as she did, the device began to hum louder, as if reacting to her touch. Olivia's pulse quickened. It was strange. The machine felt almost alive. She took a step back, her eyes narrowing. This wasn't the way it was supposed to behave. It was supposed to be stable, inert, just waiting for her to activate it. "I don't like this," she muttered under her breath, stepping away from the machine. "What's wrong with you?" But as she moved back, the lights in the lab flickered. The ground beneath her feet trembled, just a little at first, then more violently. Her stomach lurched as the hum of the device grew louder, filling the entire room with its unsettling resonance. Olivia froze. Her eyes shot up to the ceiling. The air felt different. The gravity in the room, was it changing? With a soft gasp, she reached out and grabbed hold of a nearby desk. Her fingers tightened on the edge as the world around her seemed to tilt. The floor was pulling away from her, as if the very ground was no longer under her control. "What's happening?" Olivia whispered, panic creeping into her voice. She could feel her body grow heavier as though the gravity was shifting, pulling her toward the ceiling. "No, this can't be." She trailed off as her legs lifted off the ground. The sensation was dizzying. The hum of the machine echoed through her bones, vibrating against her skin. Everything in the lab began to lift, slowly at first, and then faster. Tools, papers, and even her own coffee mug drifted upwards, caught in the unseen pull of the device. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "Olivia, what's going on?" Nathan's voice crackled through her earpiece. "I'm getting reports that the gravitational field's off the charts. What did you do?" I don't know," she screamed, her voice strained. The world spun around her as she was pulled upward, her feet leaving the ground. She grabbed onto anything she could, her fingers slipping on the surfaces as she was yanked into the air. The device pulsed again, sending a shock wave through the room, and for a moment, the entire lab seemed to glow with an eerie light. "This isn't supposed to happen," she cried. "It wasn't meant to do this." Her mind raced as she tried to calculate a way out of this, but nothing made sense. The pull was too strong. Her body was no longer her own. The machine had somehow activated its power, far beyond her understanding. Then, in a blur of movement, everything in the room went weightless. Everything but Olivia. Olivia's heart raced as she floated helplessly in the air, her body weightless. The lab had turned into a twisted version of itself. Her mind scrambled for a plan, but nothing felt right. She had always been quick to think under pressure, but this was unlike anything she'd ever encountered. The strange device in the corner continued to pulse, its hum growing louder, almost like a heartbeat. The gravity was completely reversed. Everything that had been anchored to the floor was now floating around her in a chaotic swirl. Papers, books, tools, even the chairs and desk were slowly drifting upward. Olivia's breath caught in her throat as her feet dangled in the air. She tried to push herself back down, but the force pulling her upward was too powerful. She reached out toward the nearest table, her fingers grazing the edge, but her body was yanked away before she could grasp anything. Her pulse quickened, and she fought against the panic rising in her chest. "This isn't real. This can't be happening," she gasped, her voice strained as she tried to keep herself calm. She reached out again, desperately grabbing for anything. But nothing worked. She was trapped in a world where gravity didn't exist. Everything had been turned upside down. "Olivia, what the hell is going on?" Nathan's voice crackled in her earpiece, sharp with panic. His image flickered on the small screen, and she could barely make out his face through the static. I don't know. The gravity, it's all wrong. The device, it's malfunctioning," she managed to say, her words coming out in a rush. "Don't do anything drastic. We need to figure out what's going on before." "Before what?" Olivia could barely process his words over the rising panic in her mind. She looked at the screen, but Nathan's face seemed to blur, flickering in and out as the device emitted a pulse of energy that was distorting the space around her. She could hear her own voice, small and frantic, echoing in the lab, as everything continued to float, defying all logic. Olivia twisted and turned, trying to steady herself, but there was no up, no down, just a spinning chaos. "Olivia, listen to me." Nathan's voice cut through the chaos. "You need to shut it down now. You're losing control of the system. If this keeps going, it could affect the entire building. It could spread." "I can't," she cried out, her hand shaking as she tried to find a way to stabilize herself. "It's too powerful. I can't stop it. The machine, it's beyond me. It's like it has a life of its own." As she spoke, The hum of the device intensified, a sharp screech cutting through the air, almost as if it were warning her. Olivia's mind raced, and she glanced around, looking for any way to break the cycle. Everything was in motion, but her feet, though weightless, felt heavier than they had ever felt before. Her heart pounded in her chest as the lab spun around her in a dizzying blur. The windows, the walls, the floating debris, it all seemed to move in perfect synchrony, as if time had stretched out and twisted into a new shape. The air around her felt thick, like the atmosphere itself was changing. "Olivia," Nathan's voice came again, urgent this time. "You're running out of time. If you can't get control of the device, the whole structure could implode. You have to fix it now, before it's too late." Her mind snapped to the words. Implode? Was that even possible? No, she couldn't let that happen. Olivia clenched her jaw, focusing on the task at hand. She reached for the control panel near the device, trying to focus past the disorienting spin of the room. The buttons, once so familiar, now felt alien under her fingertips. Her hand shook as she tried to find the emergency shutdown sequence, but nothing worked. It was as if the system was refusing to respond. Come on, she muttered, her voice low, almost pleading. Her fingers flew across the panel, but then, just as she was about to try something else, there was a sudden, deafening pulse that sent a shockwave through the air. It was so strong that it knocked Olivia off her feet, sending her flying toward the ceiling. "No!" she screamed, reaching out to catch herself, but there was nothing to grab. Her body slammed against the glass window, and she winced at the sharp pain. She couldn't hold on anymore. She couldn't stop the machine. The room began to distort even more, the air warping around her, twisting into something she couldn't comprehend. The gravity shifted again, this time more violently, pulling her deeper into the force. Olivia's head spun, and her vision blurred. She couldn't focus. Her breaths came in shallow gasps. She couldn't fail. She just couldn't. "I'm not done yet," she whispered to herself, determination flooding through her. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Olivia pushed herself off the window, using her hands to propel herself toward the control panel. This was it. This had to be the moment when she either fixed it or it would destroy everything. But then, just as her fingers brushed against the panel again, the machine pulsed one more time. And suddenly, everything went dark. When Olivia opened her eyes, the world around her felt like a dream, a terrifying, unrecognizable dream. She blinked several times, trying to regain her focus. The hum of the machine still echoed in her ears, a constant reminder of the chaos she had unleashed. She found herself floating, suspended in midair, unable to comprehend how she had gotten here. The lab, the familiar walls, everything was gone. The space around her seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally, as if time itself was bending. The objects she had seen floating before were now swirling in a chaotic pattern, moving faster and faster, their movements erratic. Her stomach churned as she felt the sensation of weightlessness, but at the same time, the pressure building inside her chest told her that gravity was not the only force at work. The room had become a vortex of distorted realities. "Olivia," Nathan's voice crackled through the earpiece. It was faint, distorted, but she could hear the panic in his voice. "Olivia, are you there? Respond." "I'm here," she whispered, her voice shaky as she floated helplessly. She couldn't see Nathan, couldn't even begin to understand what was happening, but she knew she had to stay calm. "Where are you?" Nathan's voice was urgent, but there was something else in it now, something deeper, something more fearful. "Can you hear me? Olivia, talk to me." I'm not sure where I am," Olivia replied, her words slow as she tried to make sense of her surroundings. Her head swam, and her body felt numb. The ground, or whatever was beneath her, had completely disappeared. "I don't think I'm in the lab anymore, Nathan. The device, it did something to the space around me. It's all wrong." Nathan's voice faltered. This doesn't make sense. The machine was only supposed to affect gravity. It wasn't supposed to do this. I don't know how much longer we can contain this. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. Contain it? You mean it's spreading? Olivia, it's not just the building, Nathan said, his voice sharp. The gravity field is expanding more than we realized. It could go global. If we don't stop this now, it could destabilize everything. Panic surged in Olivia's chest. We can't let that happen. Her voice was low, but determination began to replace the fear. If she couldn't stop it, who could? She tried to focus on the controls, but nothing was stable. The panels, once familiar, now seemed like they were dancing out of reach. Her body floated in all directions, and every attempt to focus on a fixed point only made the situation worse. Nathan, I need to know how to shut it down. Olivia cried out, her fingers grazing the glass surface of the floating control panel. But the device had become something more than a tool. It had become a puzzle she couldn't solve. I can't see what's happening from here, Nathan's voice trembled. The system's malfunctioning, but I'm trying to override the connection. If I can access the mainframe, maybe I can stop it remotely. But I'll need you to keep the system stable long enough for me to get in. How long? Olivia asked, her voice strained. I'm not sure, Nathan replied. Minutes. Maybe seconds. You have to hold on. The urgency in Nathan's voice cut through her like a knife. Olivia clenched her jaw, gripping the nearest floating object to steady herself. She could feel the room warping again, distorting even more. The walls were flickering in and out of view, and the air around her seemed to pulse with a strange energy. Every breath she took felt heavier, like she was fighting to breathe in a vacuum. This has to stop, she whispered to herself, more determined than ever. She closed her eyes, trying to ignore the growing pressure in her head. She could feel her pulse in her temples, each beat thundering in her ears. With every passing second, the situation was slipping further out of control. Olivia, you have to hold on. I'm almost there. Just a little longer, Nathan urged. Her fingers found the emergency control panel, but she couldn't make sense of the sequence of codes in front of her. The machine was in full control now, a swirling, impenetrable mess of alien technology. It was almost as if it were laughing at her, mocking her every attempt to understand it. Come on, she muttered, her voice frantic as she tapped at the controls. But as she did, the device pulsed again. The light it emitted flared brighter, and everything in the room froze. For a moment, Olivia felt the weight of everything she had done, the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her chest. She had pushed the button. She had activated the device. And now she wasn't sure if she could reverse it. Then, suddenly, the world around her went black. Olivia opened her eyes again, and the world around her seemed even more unfamiliar than before. The blackness had given way to a swirling, glowing landscape that looked like something out of a dream or a nightmare. The air felt thicker, and the hum of the device, now in the distance, seemed like a dull roar, vibrating through her bones. She was no longer in the lab. She wasn't even sure where she was anymore. Her body floated, suspended in space, but not like before. The strange gravitational forces had altered everything, and now it felt as if she was caught between two worlds. The control panels and equipment that had once surrounded her were gone, replaced by what seemed like an endless void. There was no up, no down, just darkness filled with faint, shimmering lights. She felt as if she were drifting through time itself. Nathan, she whispered, but her voice barely echoed, as if swallowed by the vast emptiness. Olivia, can you hear me? Nathan's voice broke through the static, distant and muffled, like he was speaking through a tunnel. I hear you, Olivia replied, her voice shaking with uncertainty. Her fingers reached out, grasping at the air in a futile attempt to steady herself. What's happening to me? Where am I? Nobody knows, Nathan said, his voice filled with an odd mixture of fear and frustration. The system, everything, it's beyond our understanding. But you're still connected to the device. I can see it, and I can hear it. We gotta figure this out before it spreads any further. Her heart skipped a beat. Spreads? What do you mean? The gravitational field is growing, Olivia. It's not just the building anymore. It's spreading to other parts of the city. And if it doesn't stop soon, Nathan's voice faltered, and Olivia could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her. Stop it, she said quickly, her breath quickening. You have to stop it. You have to find a way to shut it down. Now. I'm trying, Nathan replied, his voice thick with panic. But I can't access the mainframe from here. It's like the device is blocking everything. I need you to don't you dare say hold on. Olivia snapped, cutting him off. Her mind was spinning. The weight of the situation, the sense of impending disaster, was suffocating. I need answers, Nathan. What are we dealing with here? This isn't just about gravity anymore. She swallowed, the words thick in her throat. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. Olivia. Nathan's voice softened, filled with concern. Just breathe. Don't give up. You're the only one who can fix this. You're the only one who knows how the system works, how the device works. Yeah, and I screwed it up. Olivia spat, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She winced as soon as she said it, the anger in her voice mixing with fear. I should never have touched it. I thought I could fix it. I thought it was just another piece of tech. But this is something else. It's not from this world, Nathan. Silence hung in the air for a moment, broken only by the distant hum of the device. Then Nathan spoke again, his tone softer but firm. Olivia, you're the best engineer I know. You've faced worse odds before. You can figure this out. You just need to think. Her mind raced. The device, it wasn't just a machine. It had to be something more. She had sensed it from the very beginning. The way it seemed to almost react to her, how it had shifted the gravity around her, how it bent space and time in ways that defied logic. What kind of technology was this? What kind of power did it have? I need to get back, Olivia whispered, more to herself than to Nathan. I need to find out how to stop it before it destroys everything. But just as she said the words, she felt it. A shift in the air, a change in the atmosphere around her. Something new was happening. The shimmering lights began to pulse faster, brighter, and for the first time, Olivia felt herself pulled in a direction. Wait, she whispered, her pulse quickening as the strange gravitational force began to shift once again. The pull wasn't violent this time. It wasn't a violent yank like before. It was different, subtle but firm, like a magnet drawing her in. Nathan, something's happening, she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. What do you mean? Nathan responded, but his voice was tense. What's happening, Olivia? I don't know. It's like it's calling me. I can feel it. She reached out instinctively, her fingers brushing through the air as the pull intensified. Her body began to drift toward a distant light, a glowing shape that hadn't been there before. It's leading me somewhere. The connection between her and the device was undeniable now. She couldn't explain it, but it was as if she was bound to it, as if it were part of her. A part of something much bigger than she could ever have imagined. Nathan, I don't know if I can stop it, but I have to try. There was no response from Nathan. He was probably in the middle of trying to access the systems, but Olivia didn't have time to wait for him. She had to act, and she had to act fast. The light ahead of her grew brighter. She could feel the weight of the device's presence pushing her forward, urging her to get closer. Whatever was happening, she knew that she was at the center of it, and she was the only one who could stop it. Olivia's body jerked forward, pulled by the invisible force that had gripped her. She tried to focus, to regain control, but the world around her felt like it was warping. The light ahead grew brighter, more intense, as if it were calling her, pulling her toward it with a force she couldn't resist. She had to stop it. She had to figure out what was happening before everything spiraled even further out of control. Olivia! Nathan's voice broke through the haze, desperate, but she could barely hear him over the deafening hum of the device. "Olivia, talk to me. What's happening?" "I don't know," Olivia shouted back, her voice trembling as she tried to make sense of the pull. It's like the device is alive. I can feel it, Nathan. I can feel it calling me." "What do you mean calling you?" Nathan's voice was sharp, his concern turning to confusion. "Olivia, you're still connected to it. You have to stay focused. Don't let it—" "I can't focus," she interrupted, her words spilling out in a rush. "The gravity, the air, it's all wrong. It's pulling me somewhere. I have no control over it. I need answers, Nathan, now." The light ahead was almost blinding now, and Olivia found herself drawn toward it with an overwhelming force. She didn't want to go, didn't want to follow the pull that seemed to have its grip on her, but she was powerless to resist. It was like she was being dragged into the heart of the storm. "Olivia, I'm working as fast as I can." Nathan's voice came through again, frantic. "But I can't reach the mainframe. I can't stop it remotely. You have to do something, anything to slow it down." "I'm trying," Olivia screamed, panic beginning to edge into her voice. She could feel the pressure building inside her chest, the air growing heavier, thicker. The closer she got to the light, the stronger the pull became, and the more distant Nathan's voice sounded. Then, without warning, the ground, or what should have been the ground, began to shift beneath her. She gasped, her heart pounding in her chest as the room around her started to change again. The space around her twisted, bending like a mirage, and the once solid forms of the lab seemed to evaporate into thin air. It wasn't just the room that was changing, it was the fabric of reality itself. "No, no, no," she shouted, struggling against the growing force. "I can't. What is this?" I don't know," Nathan replied, his voice breaking through the static. "The device, it's controlling everything, Olivia. You need to find a way to—" But before Nathan could finish his sentence, the force around Olivia surged, and with a violent rush, she was pulled forward. Her body hurtled through the air, faster and faster, until she slammed into something solid. She blinked, trying to clear her vision. The light around her was blinding, and the world seemed to flicker in and out of existence. For a moment, everything stopped. The hum of the device faded into the background, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Then, in the quiet, Olivia realized something that made her blood run cold. She wasn't alone. A figure stood before her, cloaked in shadow, its form barely visible against the glowing backdrop. It was tall, its features hidden beneath a dark hood, but Olivia could sense its presence, the weight of it pressing down on her. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile reality she was in. The figure didn't move at first, but Olivia felt its gaze on her, even though she couldn't see its eyes. The air around her crackled with energy, and a chill ran down her spine. "I am not your enemy," the figure said, its voice low, almost melodic. "But I am here to guide you, or to stop you, depending on your choices." Olivia's heart raced, 1,000 questions flooding her mind. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice tight with suspicion. The figure's form shifted, and a soft light seemed to emanate from it, filling the space around them. "I want you to understand," it said. "The device you've activated is not just a tool. It is a key to power beyond your comprehension." "What kind of power?" Olivia asked, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "The kind of power that can bend the very fabric of existence," the figure answered. "The kind of power that can reshape reality itself." Olivia's head spun as the weight of the words sank in. The device wasn't just a machine, it was something more. Something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. "Then why did you bring me here?" Olivia demanded, trying to push aside the fear gnawing at her. "What do you want me to do?" The figure seemed to hesitate before it spoke again, its voice laced with an unsettling calmness. "You have two choices, Olivia Moore. You can wield the power of the device for your own gain, or you can destroy it. But be warned, the consequences of your choice will be irreversible. Her mind raced. She had no idea what she was dealing with, but something told her that the stakes were higher than she could have ever imagined. The figure's presence loomed over her, its words echoing in her ears. Your future depends on this moment, it said, its voice fading into the darkness. Olivia swallowed hard. She didn't know what was real anymore, but she did know one thing. She had to make a choice, and she had to make it fast. Olivia's mind raced as the figure's words echoed in her mind. She had to make a choice that could change everything. The gravity of the situation felt heavier than ever before. Her entire body tingled with uncertainty as she tried to process what was happening. She was standing at the center of something far beyond her understanding, a power she didn't know how to control. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and frustration. "You're telling me I have two choices, but what happens if I don't choose? What if I fail?" The figure didn't respond immediately. Its form shimmered in the dim light, almost like it was made of smoke, its outline flickering in and out of existence. Then, slowly, its voice broke the silence. "You must choose. There is no turning back from this. The device has already begun to unravel the balance. The longer it remains in your hands, the harder it will be to stop." Olivia clenched her fists, her heart hammering in her chest. "I never wanted this. I didn't ask for any of this." Her voice was raw with emotion. "I just wanted to fix it, to repair something that was broken." The figure's form shifted, and for a moment, it almost looked like it was closer to her, its presence pressing in on her. "Everything that happens from here on is your choice, Olivia. The power to undo or to continue is yours. But know this, the choice will affect more than just you. It will affect the entire world. The device can reshape reality, but in doing so, it will tear apart the very fabric of what is. You must decide, will you save what remains, or will you take what is offered to you?" The words hit Olivia like a ton of bricks. The weight of them settled over her like a suffocating fog. She had been holding on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this was all a mistake, a glitch in the system that she could fix. But now it was clear. This was no mistake. This was something far bigger than she had ever imagined. "But I don't even know what I'm choosing," Olivia shouted, the frustration boiling over. "How do I know what's right? How do I know I'm not making a bigger mistake?" The figure seemed to pause, as if considering her question. "That is the nature of power, Olivia. No one knows what the consequences will be until it's too late. The path you choose will shape your future, your world. But remember, there is always a price." A cold shiver ran down Olivia's spine as she looked at the glowing figure, its presence looming over her. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, every second stretching into eternity. "I can't do this alone," Olivia whispered, her voice small. "I can't carry this on my own." The figure's form flickered again, this time brighter, its voice now softer. "You are not alone. You have always had the strength within you. You just have to decide if you're willing to face it." Her head spun, 1,000 thoughts swirling inside. The device, the gravity, the chaos. It had all started with one small mistake, one choice. And now, she was standing at the precipice of another decision that could determine the fate of everything. "What do I do?" she asked again, her voice barely audible. The figure was silent for a long moment, then spoke in a voice that felt almost like a whisper in the wind. "Find the heart of the device. It will show you the truth." Before Olivia could respond, the world around her seemed to flicker once more, the air distorting. The figure was gone, but its words remained, echoing in her mind. Find the heart of the device. What did that even mean? The light before her grew brighter, almost blinding, and Olivia felt the pull once again, stronger than ever before. She had no choice now. She had to move forward. With every step, she could feel the gravity pulling her, like an invisible hand guiding her toward the heart of whatever this was. The path ahead was unclear, but the choice was hers. She had to make it. She couldn't let the world slip through her fingers. Not again. The weight of her decision was unbearable, but there was no turning back. Not now. Olivia stepped forward, the light blinding her once more, and the world shifted around her. The light engulfed Olivia, blinding her, overwhelming her senses. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breath shallow and fast as she moved toward the source of the radiance. Every step felt like it was taking her deeper into something vast, something unknown. The pull was inescapable, yet she knew she had no choice but to follow it. Olivia! Nathan's voice crackled through the earpiece once more, but it sounded distant, almost like it was coming from another world. "Are you there? Can you hear me?" "I'm here," she said, her voice strained, barely able to form words through the weight of everything pressing in on her. I'm going in. I don't know what's on the other side, Nathan, but I have to know what's happening. I have to finish this. And no, Olivia, don't." Nathan's voice cracked, filled with fear. "You don't know what you're walking into. You're in danger. You have to stop." "I can't stop now, Nathan," she interrupted, the words fierce, desperate. "I've come too far. It's already begun. I have to understand it. I have to find the heart of the device. I don't know what that means yet, but I'll figure it out. I have to." The static on the line intensified, then abruptly fell silent, leaving Olivia in eerie quiet once more. She was alone. She moved forward, the light pulling her closer, almost like a living thing. The closer she got, the more she could feel the power of the device surging through the air around her. It wasn't just a tool, it was a force alive in its own way. She could feel it vibrating, its hum vibrating in the depths of her chest. The space around her began to shift again, swirling like a vortex. The world flickered in and out of focus, disorienting her. One moment she was standing in a vast, empty expanse of glowing light, and the next she was somewhere else entirely, a dark void, stretched and endless. It was as if the fabric of time and space was bending under the pressure of the device's power. Then she saw it, a shape in the distance. It wasn't solid, but more like a shadow, a figure made of light and darkness interwoven. As she approached, it became clearer, its form shifting, but there was something unmistakable about it. The heart of the device. It was just as the figure had said. The source of all the power, the force that had twisted everything out of shape. Olivia stopped just in front of it. Her breath caught in her throat as she looked at the glowing mass that pulsed before her. The light radiated from it, like a heart beating, thumping with energy. The air felt electric, charged with something ancient, something powerful. And then the voice came again, not from the figure, but from the heart itself. "You are here, Olivia Moore. You have reached the center, the heart." Her skin prickled as the words washed over her. It was the device speaking. It was alive. "Why me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why did you choose me?" The voice responded, softer now, almost as if it were speaking directly to her soul. "I did not choose you. You chose me. You activated the key. The device is bound to you as much as you are bound to it. You are part of the force that controls it, just as it is part of you. Your choices will now determine the future. The power within you has already begun to flow, Olivia. You are the keeper of the balance. You must choose what it will become." Her mind swirled. The weight of the words settled heavily on her shoulders. She had known that the device was powerful, but she hadn't understood this. She wasn't just fixing something anymore. She was standing at the threshold of a new reality, and whatever she did next would shape the world. "I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered, the fear in her voice palpable. "I don't know what to do." The voice, now more like a deep hum than words, seemed to surround her. "You are ready, Olivia Moore. The choice has always been yours. Will you reshape the world, or will you stop it?" Olivia's mind raced as she weighed the options, but deep down, she knew the answer. The choice wasn't just about the device. It wasn't even about saving the world or destroying it. It was about what kind of person she wanted to be. She could control the power, or she could let it consume her. She could choose to use it for good, or let it break everything. Her gaze locked on the glowing heart. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they hovered over it. "This is it," she said softly, almost to herself. "This is my choice." And with that, she pressed her hand to the heart of the device. The world around her shifted violently, the light blinding her once more. The hum grew louder, filling her ears. The force seemed to envelop her, pushing and pulling at her. But this time it wasn't chaotic. It was controlled. Olivia's vision blurred, and for a moment, she thought she saw flashes of a future. A future where the world was different, where the device had been used to heal, to create. A future where humanity had evolved, but a future that was also fragile. And then, just as quickly, everything went quiet. The light faded, and Olivia stood alone in the dark void once more, but she felt different, stronger, at peace. The device was silent now. Its power had been subdued, and in that silence, Olivia knew that the world had been saved, but not without sacrifice. The path she had chosen had altered the course of history, but there was still more to be done. The journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.